So yeah, Ben Marks, I'm here from Shopware. Big thanks to checkout.com and GPMD for facilitating this whole thing and giving me a reason to come to sunny London. I hear the sun always shines. It's just usually on top of the clouds. But I'm the least important person on the stage for sure. I have my good friends here. I would actually like for you to introduce yourselves and where you're from.
I'm Jeremy. I run the Fish Society.
And Jen from Paxton Whitfield, head of marketing.
So before we get started, does everyone here know these two? Are you familiar with these companies so far? Probably a lot of customers in common. We are here looking at kind of the current state of affairs when it comes to commerce and changes and everything. And I recall being here a few years ago when the UK had a very critical vote, I guess we would call it, that sort of started us down this path, and then sort of time went on and basically said, hold my beer and let me give you a pandemic. Let's before we get into all of that, like let's go with a little bit of the history of the history of the company. So let's start with the Fish Society.
Sure. So the Fish Society was set up in 1992, in fact, where we were selling fish through adverts in magazines. So we're a mail order business even back then. We got our first e-commerce website in 2000. So before we knew about Shopware and before I knew about Shopware.
Before Shopware knew about Shopware.
Yeah, before Shopware knew about Shopware. Someone might have had a thought. So we grew over the years and have gained momentum in the late teens and have had a lot of momentum over the past 2 years fueled by the pandemic, a good website and some good products. And we sell 200 different types of fish to customers in their own homes.
Okay. And tell us about cheese, Jen.
Yeah, so Paxton Whitfield is the UK's oldest cheesemonger, founded in 1797. So it's our 225th birthday next year. So I guess, yeah, rich history, been through lots of ups and downs as a company, survived 2 world wars. Lots of changing times, changing trends. So yeah, when the pandemic hit, it felt very much kind of, I guess, a bit reassuring that the company had been through these times before, but also quite a lot of responsibility and pressure to make sure that we could do as other teams had done before and do a good job through it.
And it's a perfect theme, like adaptation, right? So this is, I mean, everyone in this room is somehow connected to the world of online commerce. And it's been pretty, I mean, depending on your position, pretty recession-proof. The last few years, I think we know have accelerated by projections, have accelerated the growth and adoption of e-commerce by at least 5 years. But it's also not been without its trials. So I think both of you, both of the companies that you're representing, have had to deal with adversity, during the pandemic, and I'm only bringing this up because sort of looking towards the future, we're always defining and discovering the future based on where we've come from. So what are the unexpected challenges you think that your company's seen? We'll start with Fish Society in the last couple of years and faced, and how did you adapt?
Yeah, sure. I think the one challenge that I would probably talk about was, we were looking at, middle of March, 2020, I think that's when the pandemic started. And we're all concerned, what's going to happen? Is this going to be good? Or is this going to be bad? And obviously it was going to be bad. But what happened to the website was the website started going into overdrive. And quickly we realized that we needed to operationally scale up to this. So first, it was employ people, where we got lots of people through the door. We went 7 days a week. We did a night shift. Once that was starting to max out at that point, got some new lease space, and which is about 5 times the footprint of where we were, kitted that out, moved over there, and then set up ability to scale up. So I think it was an operational challenge. And then whilst you've got that all going on, you're having to keep everyone who you're working shoulder to shoulder with very safe. And particularly back in those days when there was slightly less understanding about what this disease was, it was keeping everyone sane too.
What about for you, Jim?
Yeah, I guess the difference for us was the epicenter of our business was our Jermyn Street London shop, and we've been trading out of that address for over 100 years. And that was definitely the main source of revenue. It's not in a residential area, so it could have stayed open because it was food, but we actually decided to close it because it was mainly tourists and business people that frequented it. So we lost that revenue overnight. We also lost our wholesale revenue overnight. So we sold into a lot of restaurants and a lot of hotels. So it was a big change for us. But we did start to see very early on that conversion rates on the website spiked to levels that we'd normally only see at Christmas with cheese. So we saw it as an opportunity, and our MD took felt like a really bold move at the time to kind of invest in the digital marketing and to grow that space, to move people across from the shops. So we kind of restructured our head office, moved some of our high performing store managers into new roles in the head office. And it seems like an easy decision now. It was definitely the right thing to do. But at the time when your revenue's dropping, it was quite bold to invest in that.
Yeah, sort of fear-driven, adaptation, right? Now, it's actually I really like where you've taken that. So if you look at that pivot, and so the good thing is you had the data, you had, obviously there was some interest there, but what were some of the things that you had to do to change your business, to adapt to the what may be the new normal that you think are going to carry forward into the years ahead of us, when hopefully this whole unpleasantness will be behind us?
It's changed business. So I guess we've learned so much during this period. We've moved, like we would have had in-store tastings before. We've moved those online, which are amazing events, and we're looking to continue next year, even when people can meet face-to-face. We'll still have online tastings as well. We run Academy of Cheese courses, which previously were only in person in London. We moved those to Zoom, so it's an official cheese accreditation.
The sommelier of the cheese world, right?
Yes, exactly.
I can taste the goat.
That's actually something that any manager in our company has to study, the Academy of Cheese level 1 at least, and get that accreditation. So yeah, I think we've learned a lot through new product development. One of our best sellers through the pandemic, where we came up with monthly collections, limited edition themed collections, which were just perfect for that particular period and what was happening, trends at the time. So like a staycation cheese box, so your cheese and wine for your kind of staycation weekend in. So we've learned a lot about what products work with our customers too, that we will now take those learnings into the store environment as well.
Yeah. So how do you make those decisions going forward? Like, what are the signals that you see, and what do you put out there so that you can find these signals to like say, oh, well, this is probably worth pursuing? I mean, this is the obvious one, which is like, okay, people are buying our cheese, but can you go a little bit into that and just sort of say, well, we know that getting closer to our customer is working for us. How can we continue that engagement? Maybe even looking at a time where people are going back out and they're getting their cheese experiences. And I'm gonna take this to you in just a second, but like they're getting their experiences back in the traditional places, like in the restaurants and so forth.
I guess a lot through analytics and testing. So what I think I love about e-commerce, it doesn't happen so much in retail environments maybe, is just you're able to test on a small scale and analyze, get all of the data from it, and then decide if you want to roll it out. Okay. We get a lot of feedback through Net Promoter Score surveys. So we run a post-purchase survey on the website, and it always amazes me what response we get from customers, and we'll go into real detail in that survey.
Oh, really cool.
So that definitely helps us drive change and evolve.
So thinking about testing, I'm old enough in this business to remember when before there was Google Analytics, there was Urchin Analytics, and that's what became Google Analytics. That's why all those cookies begin with UA, by the way. So Urchin, I'm going to use that as just a blunt segue into the fishmongering business. What about for you? Like, you all saw like overnight, like, holy shit, the restaurants are closed. And what were you using? Like, what were you thinking? What were you all doing to figure out like, okay, what's next? How do we keep the lights on?
Sorry. well, a big one was just putting the red out of stock items on the website back into stock, which is a silly thing to say, but like, you've also got a certain amount of capacity to store something and hold it. So there was that. And, when you sell 400 different top level SKUs, you see that the same ones are going red quicker than the other ones. So when you've got such mass demand, it's like testing by fire, if you know what I mean, and you can see what works there. And maybe going slightly similar to what Jen was saying about kits and experiences and bits and bobs like that, we were selling sashimi like crazy, and people were buying it to do something at home with it. And so, lo and behold, down the line, we lit a sashimi kit or a sushi kit. And, now looking to the future, it's how do we give that experience? Like, do we just want to sell fish, or are we going to sell an experience for people to do at their homes? And then that's maybe where the next bit is.
So I guess you could say that maybe it's been for both of you, it's been a shift from, the commodity to the story. Yeah.
And I mean, particularly as well, it's been a very topical year for where fish comes from. I'm sure everyone's seen a certain Netflix documentary, and some of you might even ask me about it after this. But undoubtedly, talking about where the product comes from is hugely important, particularly if you're going to charge a premium price like Paxton Whitfield do for their cheese, or like we do for our fish. So storytelling is... Wait,
are you talking about my octopus teacher? Because like I already had a hard time eating octopus, and I can't eat. I'm sorry. I know cows are cute too, but octopuses they're even cuter.
So I guess still one of the things about our cheese shops, I guess, that we can learn from them and how they've evolved for hundreds of years, is they're just an assault on the senses and that whole experience and the story, and the cheesemongers are so passionate about the cheeses. So that's something I always want to bottle for the website. So I think there's definitely, we need to learn from both channels, and that's something that they have in bucket loads.
That's a really interesting way of describing it, just as an aside, like, because I remember the first time walking into a cheese shop in London. It's an olfactory experience that you don't know, but then you walk out, you have great cheeses. Now, do you all see in your industries, do you see your competitors adapting similarly, or are they doing things that sort of kind of make you say, okay, that's really interesting, and maybe we could do that, or are you kind of leading the way?
I think one thing that some competitors may be doing that we're not is evolving the subscriptions. So we actually, I'm pretty sure we were one of the first cheese subscriptions, as in cheese memberships, from the 1970s.
1970s, yeah.
Launched our cheese club. But you can purchase a 3-month, a 6-month, or a 12-month membership. It's not customizable. And one of the challenges with it is it's a great gift idea. But on the Net Promoter Score, we have a real varying opinion. So in the same cheese box, somebody will say the cheeses were incredible. They were just right. They were great. I love strong cheeses. And another one will say didn't like the cheese at all. It was too strong. And so with the subscription, it's a great experience for discovering cheeses, but you don't actually get to select which cheeses you're going to receive. An expert cheesemonger will do that. So I think there's definitely room to expand our subscriptions and maybe make it.
Now, is that driven mostly just by what you have by your stock, or is it a lack of insight into?
No, they're really carefully curated. It's just that you can have real strong preference for cheese. Like, there's differences in the office. I won't eat a certain washed round, really stinky cheese. It's not my favorite, but that will go straight away from, if it's on the side in the office. There are others that absolutely love it. Okay. So there's just, they're really carefully selected cheeses, and you get an incredible selection. Yeah. But they're just, people have different preferences, and at the moment we don't kind of cater for that in the subscription.
Okay. What about you, Jamie? What are you finding? Among your, I mean, obviously there's no one in your class, right? But no, but what are you finding? I mean, actually, it doesn't even have to be a direct competitor, but like, what do you see others doing to adapt things that you might want to look to do going forward?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think there's a lot talking about the experiences.
Yep.
There are companies doing meals at homes and fish experiences so well and so much better than us. And it's not all that we're going to do, but there's a lot to learn from these companies. So I've mentioned it earlier, but Rick Stein's restaurant put out an interesting meal at home box, and Coat also did this. And I think there's a lot to learn from that, sort of adding value into the new products. Then building out the story as well. Other companies that perhaps have quite a romantic origin. They're based by the coast, and they know the fisherman who's doing that, and their storytelling is so on point. And I think trying to build that more would be great. And one of the things that we're hoping to do is do a lot more video, because we're building this presentation kitchen where we will be doing a lot with suppliers, get the fishermen in, get a chef in to talk about how to cook the fish. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't think there's a great go-to place out there that kind of demystifies, like, where's that fish from and how am I going to cook it? And oh my God, I'm pretty nervous that this costs 20 quid. And if I mess this up, I've got to go to Tesco's. And so if you can fix that problem on a regular basis and be consistent with it, I think that's something that will be really hard to copy.
Interesting. So you're talking about, sort of expanding or extending the relationship with the consumer so that you're actually empowering them. And I could actually even see the same in your case, where you are like with the academy, where you sort of teach people exactly the art of it, because I think then you start to convert people into evangelists and if you happen to be the one that does that, guess what? You're going to be the one that they're bringing in. Now, do you see? One of the things that I think we're seeing these days, there's someone who I pay a lot of attention to, Andrea Hernandez. She's actually out of Honduras, but she's built this newsletter called the Snacks Shot, and really what she realized a long time ago, like before everyone else, was that like curation, even as a service, is a thing. So how do you? So you describe a curational sort of journey, but if do you see collaboration with even outside vendors, so that you're building like a collaborative experience together? Is that one of the things that we'll do, or do you think you just let the customers decide?
Well, me and Jen do need to work out what cheese and fish go together. But so a small example of this is, once we've got this kitchen at the end of the month, there are cookery schools all around London. Maybe some of you have gone to these, but they would, and we've been talking to them, they're really keen to come in, do a focused cookery course at the school with our customers and team up. And we might have a sushi specialist or a Spanish food specialist, and you can tap into different themes who have got their own little customer bases. So there's a bit of that with collaboration.
Okay.
Going forward.
What about for you all?
So one thing we're looking at is we're very heavily weighted to Christmas at the moment. Everyone wants amazing cheese for Christmas, and we want them to have amazing cheese for Christmas. We have a dip in July and August. People don't want as much cheese when it's hot. So that's something that we're looking at, potentially collaborating. Not quite sure what yet, but watch this space for next summer.
Interesting. Now, how do you see the thaw, if you will, from it's bad in your business? I know, unless you're intending for the fish to be thawed, but like, how do you see do you start to see kind of things going back to where they were yet, or is that still on the horizon?
Yeah, definitely not seeing that at the moment. One thing that we look at outside of Christmas, our biggest gifting period is Father's Day. So Father's Day this year was not lockdown versus lockdown last year, and we saw really good growth across that weekend. So that really gave us some confidence for Christmas. As I said, the business is so heavily weighted for Christmas.
Okay.
One of the challenges we have is the forecasting really has to be on point with cheese. We don't want to avoid food wastage, particularly soft cheese.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've lost what I was saying, but yeah, so
Yeah, no, post-COVID. And yeah, I mean, for us, like, sure, it has quietened down from where it was. I think, you know, we saw November, December, January, February, March. And then as the restaurants and things opened up, it did come down.
Yeah.
But are we at a new plateau that is years ahead of where we were before? And yes, we are. And I think you can also sometimes deceive yourself that holding on to, oh, this is going to continue on at this pace forever, and it's probably not. What you've probably, in our case, got to do, or what I'm, you know, what have you accrued? You've accrued 6-7 years worth of customer database now that you can do something with, and you've invested in this and that, and move forward.
Okay. Yeah. And do you see, in thinking about what this is all going, like we've had the opportunity to get addicted to a little bit of like hyper growth, and you know, and it's one of the challenges that's sort of offset by, like, you know, just what we have happening in the US right now. You know, oil is pouring all over like the Orange County shores in California because there's so many ships anchored out sea, and supply chain is just a disaster. It's sort of top of the news cycle everywhere, and of course it's not just the US, it's everywhere. But there are even these live maps where you can see all of the container ships that are just sitting there waiting to offload their stuff. You know, are you seeing going forward? We'll get through this, but are you seeing going forward? Do you think we're going to have some of these challenges on the supply side of things, and maybe even feel free to throw in some of the supply challenges that you've had to date?
Sure. Yeah. Containers is an interesting one to start with. Someone described it to me that if you think about a board game of dominoes where all of them are tied up, and then someone flips the dominoes over, you've still got the same number of containers, but they all just ended up in different places around the world. And like, one of the key reasons the price is going up is because empty containers usually pick up freight and move it back over. Now they're simply just having to be shipped empty to get them back into the right starting positions, because as things shut down at different points, it all got worse. So that's going to take time. I don't see that getting better for a while. And I think obviously working with a wild product for us, bring it into, we've got at least 20 suppliers from outside the UK and even outside that, Europe. The paperwork has got more difficult. Importation, you know, is getting really difficult, and it will only get harder in January. But it's not all doom and gloom. Like, we're still buying from the same people we were. The orders have to be bigger to justify going through the hassle of doing the paperwork. And, you know, I think also sometimes when you're forced to look at, gosh, is that really worth getting that thing from there? You actually look around you a little bit more, and actually you can get quite creative with some of the products that are more locally. And we've had a really exciting time with new suppliers and new products that were under our nose that you just never bothered to look at, because it was like next day delivery from France before, and now it's not next day delivery. So yeah, I think it's tough, but it's not doom and gloom sort of thing.
Okay, are you seeing similar?
Yeah, we're not actually having any supply issues as such. We work with a lot of really small artisan cheesemakers. They have like family farms. They employ their own family to make the cheese. That cheese is still going, and they have their own vans to drive it to us. So not so much. Brexit has definitely affected our continental cheese. Again, we're having to buy in large quantities to make that the expense of the paperwork make more sense. And particularly for the hard cheese. So we're moving to a new cheese rooms facility with a lot more space. Really exciting time for us, and it means we'll change the way that we buy in our cheese. So we'll be able to buy in greater quantities of hard cheese and mature it ourselves. So yeah, that's how we'll manage that bit.
So do you all have like your own caves? You can.
Yeah.
That's good. Now, I'm going to kind of switch directions a little bit. I mean, you all are fortunately not alone in your respective commerce journeys. You have great tech partners, you have great agencies that you're working with, and of course, you have just the preeminent e-commerce platform to rely on. What are the things that among those tiers, like what are groups? What could we be doing better, or more of, or what should we plan for in your mind? This is totally out of left field, so if you don't have an answer, it's fine, because this of course is the question that we're all asking ourselves as well. But what are you what expectations do you have of your vendors to kind of meet some of these challenges going forward?
I guess more of a marketing friendly interface to be able to do a lot ourselves as well. We've got a great relationship with the agency. I think there's certain things that would be good to be able to do yourself as a marketing team on the front end.
I mean, it's sort of like how much money do you have to spend, isn't it? A lot of with the platforms, but I think one of the things that you said earlier that's quite interesting about integrating the experience between your shops and your website, and that you're not doing that and making that nice and simple. And one of the things, because we only sell on the internet, I'm thinking, hey, wait a minute, like Jen's got a couple shops, like I need to be doing a bit of that. And I don't know, I haven't thought about this before, but some nice solution to tie that all together if you do want to explore doing some bricks and mortar stuff down the line. And it may exist, I don't know about that.
Yeah, no, definitely a big target for us is to become more omni-channel, and we know that a lot of our online customers actually live in close proximity to our shops. So definitely that's a big focus for us to improve there, and potentially to open new bricks and mortar sites as well.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, years ago, actually my very first buy online pickup in store was at the cheap, outdoor shop here in London. And it was just like, I knew I had to come in for an event, and I'm like, oh yeah, my wife wanted me to get some what are they called? The wool shirts, like icebreaker shirts or something. And I was like, oh wait, I remember walking by and seeing this as a thing. And then I remember asking about this whole experience. And it was really new for the people in the shop, but that was one of the things that they had mentioned, was that it's interesting that they had like regular customers, but that those regular customers now had like this whole different way, and they were able. The cool thing was it wasn't like an event where they had to go in and engage in this retail thing. It was like they knew what they wanted, it was there, and it was a lot easier for them to pick it up. I can imagine it's actually works even better for like, I'm gonna get my cheese like at this time, or I'm gonna grab my fish at this time.
One more thing that I think is useful, it's like this is it's great when I catch up with Jen because she's on Shopware and we get to talk about things, but knowing other retailers who are in the UK who can talk to and be like, what are you doing about your next day thing? And and just have that network of people who are doing the same thing and have a warehouse problem and are thinking about opening another shop. And that's probably a really good thing to have.
Kind of a bit of community building then, and facilitating dialogue. So I know all of my friends here are taking notes, but basically how can we help you explore the problems with sort of your cohort of fellow retailers? That's a really interesting point. And in my experience, and I'm sure we've all been to conferences where you get especially merchants at a table with each other having conversations. It's like, oh wow, I thought I was the only one who had that problem, or we tried this and it worked, or we tried this and it blew up spectacularly. How would you want to do that? What would it be an online thing? Would it be getting together and grilling some fish and eating some cheese? And
well, I mean, that sounds great.
I agree.
But in the world where we can all meet up online, sure. A digital relationship is a very easy way to get people together. And everyone in this room probably knows people who are retailers on Shopware, and we could probably get that going pretty quickly. Now, there's also key points where we could all meet up like this and talk, or there could be a retailer's side bit off there, because I love you guys at the agency, but retailers do have a slightly different perspective on things as well, and it's useful to have lots of different perspectives on the same problems.
Yeah, definitely agree. And one of the reasons we launched Saturday deliveries recently was for having a chat with the Fish Society, one of your team. So yeah, really helpful to have that relationship.
Interesting. And so Saturday delivery became a key thing. Do you think that's because people are like, hey, it's Saturday, I'm gonna want to eat some cheese, or is it something else?
Yeah, no, traditionally we only delivered from between a Tuesday and a Friday. And again, we were a lot smaller pre-COVID as an e-commerce team. We've really had to kind of restructure the way we do business, and that's now changing.
Okay.
So yeah, we're starting to offer Saturday deliveries from the next couple of weeks.
Interesting. All right, so I think this is, we could go on forever, right? I mean, who doesn't want to talk about fish and cheese and Shopware all night long? But I was actually wondering, it seems the time to ask the audience if you have any questions. You, sir, handsome man in the glasses.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just in. I'm really interested to know how your audience changed over the COVID. Three questions, by the way. How the audience changed over that COVID crisis. I'm assuming it did. It's even just the online audience change. And how you change the product. Did you have to change the product sets around that? Second question I have is what international markets are you serving, and is that increasing? And how are you increasing getting that out there, or is it just too hard? Or from that point of view, that's too leave it there for now. So yeah. One third one is, what other retail trade bodies are you finding useful? Going to play to your question, is you probably don't want to come and hang out with other techies. Actually, as you say, you want to talk to other retailers about what's going on in retail, and what are the ones that are working for you?
So I guess audience change for us was a lot of gifting. The website very heavily cheese gifting, and we curated collections to suit that. Kind of the comfort cheese box that we launched, for example, in the early stages of the pandemic. Whereas the shops are actually very heavily, buying for your personal consumption. And so I guess we want to increase that on the website, people buying cheese for themselves and potentially their weekly subscription. And we want to increase the gifting in the shops and kind of take the learnings.
So people buying?
Mm-hmm. I don't have those analytics. I'd love to deep dive into it. We actually don't have a CRM system. And yeah, having the time to deep dive would be great. But it's not something we've really had the time to analyze so far.
We got a younger audience, which was quite cool. So before that, we had a lot of legacy customers because we've been going for quite a while. But they love to pick up the phone and respond to brochures and bits and bobs like this. Now, it was a golden time of cheap new customer acquisition through social media and other such things. And this moved the highest traffic group to 25 to 34-year-olds on the website. And for a big proportion of the last 2 years, that's been the highest revenue group as well. It's now flattening out a little bit, to be honest, but it's definitely a lot more prominent than it used to be. And then what products come out of that? Well, I heard anyone who was at the event the other week, sorry if you're hearing the same quote, but someone on the stage said that more 18 to 30-year-olds now want to do gardening than go to a nightclub. So if you think about that, and then I say here, yeah, I know, but then you buy a sushi kit, you get your mates around, you get a couple of drinks in, there's an opportunity there, and for that younger market with the experiences. Trade bodies, NA, not really. I'm not involved in any. I mean, I go to the RX, I go to events and bits and bobs, but I'm definitely not involved in any groups, I don't think.
Trading in the club for the spade.
Yeah. So are you guys selling internationally? Has that increased, decreased? How are you managing that? How's Brexit affecting that? You had to do to deal with that.
So we used to sell internationally. Maybe that answers the question, but yeah, no. So it never was huge. Pre-COVID, pre-Brexit, it got at its height to about 5 or 6% of what we were doing. Thing with perishable product is, well, maybe cheese, but also fish, like it has to get there quick. So if it's getting to Italy, it's got to get there next day. And, you know, to do a next day courier to the Alps or Italy or wherever is expensive. So you only get certain clientele who are willing to pay €120 delivery for next day. So it was very difficult to scale that. So it doesn't work. And now it's near impossible because the same amount of paperwork on an animal product, whether it's 1 pack or 10 tons, will make it prohibitive.
Yeah, exactly the same for us. So we used to charge something like £60 delivery for international delivery all over the world. And it was the cheese wasn't arriving in the condition that we wanted it to arrive in and that we'd be happy with. So we have stopped our international deliveries and we haven't found a way to do it at the moment. I'm sure there is demand out there and hopefully we'll find a way
maybe
to do it.
A German hub with the help of Shopware.
Fundamental warehouses, mostly in Netherlands, so that they can actually, because they can't be dealing with this, you know, that means for you guys, obviously almost entirely replicating your building chain.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you don't want to be distributing anything out of shopping, and it's a neat little town, but it's a little bit far away from where was. Does anyone want to ask a question who's not from Shopware? No. They actually no. They were great questions. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, just kind of curious, obviously, with the e-commerce world, thinking about sustainability, packaging, delivering products, and obviously perishable products, trying to get cold, etc., more packaging. So what kind of things are you thinking about in terms of sustainability?
And I'll apologize. I should have been repeating these questions for the streams. The question was really about like sustainability, you know, especially around packaging and yeah. And I know you both have some interesting stories here.
Yes. Shall I? Yeah, I can. So 3 months ago, we stopped using polystyrene boxes, which is good because they're bad for everything. And we moved to a cardboard-based solution, which is fully curbside recyclable, first of its kind, had to get it designed and all that, but we're there now. Problem with that is the Amazon effect. Everyone wants cardboard, everyone wants to ship stuff. So in the first 3 months, we had 2 price rises amounting to about 14% on the base cost. And I've just placed a 500 pallet order and you get increases of 14%. It's tough. And so we got there. Now looking beyond that, because it is bulky, to keep it cold using cardboard, you've got a thing called a winding. So you may think of like a cylinder and you're running cardboard around it like 6 times and it's got film on it. So it's like physically quite large. So it's still waste. Like, I mean, it does get recycled, but do you want to put that in the bin every time? So we're looking at a new option with DPD at the moment, which is called like reverse it or swap it, depending on if you've got a box, and potentially looking at customers paying a down payment for, I don't know, I don't have the number, but let's say 30 quid or something, or 40 quid. And we can use a robust multi-shipment box. So it'll go out to the house, you pay for a little bit more time for the DPD driver to there, they unload it and it comes back. For that to work, it's a huge customer buy-in project because they've got to put the money in. The customer's got to be at their house. Like if they're not at their house, what happens? Blah, 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 blah. But that would be the next step for us.
Sam, what about you?
The biggest change we made was move to 100% sheep's wool insulation for the parcels, which is really cool stuff. Has lots of different ways that you can reuse it. Was more expensive, but the sustainability aspect was really important to us. We're trying to reduce packaging where possible. So one of our best sellers at Christmas is a baby Stilton, about that big. So we're not having it in a box this year. It's just going to be wrapped in wax paper. And then we've just redesigned all of our biscuit packaging. So we're printing with vegetable inks onto Forestry Commission certified card, making an element of the packaging reusable so you can cut it out and use it as a cheese board marker. So yeah, definitely something that we're kind of talking about every day in terms of how we can change what we do to make it more sustainable.
But technically, I mean, we call biscuits cookies in the States. So technically you're eating vegetables when you're, got it. No, I love it. Now, was the adaptation, like, was this something that the company just wanted to do, or was this something that your customers were asking for?
Both. Definitely something that we wanted to do. We have had people, somebody sent back a box and said, please use better carb, or something they were recommending that we did with it. I can't actually remember what. But yeah, through our Net Promoter Score surveys, people loved the wool insulation. So we tested that on a percentage of orders, and it got so much good feedback that we definitely needed to roll that one out.
It's similar. We actually, I think we were gonna do it, but we did a survey to people who placed one order with us in the last 2 years. We said, why didn't you come back? And 12% of them said, I didn't like the box it came in, like the polystyrene box. And 12%. Yeah. And well, you fix that problem. That's good. And
solves your 14% cardboard rise
this month. But it does. So that was it. Really
cool. All right. Well, again, we could go on all night. Any last things that anyone wants to say, or can we?
Yeah, Tom Irving. I'm a retailer. My company's mywallet.com. We sell leather goods. We sell bed cows. And they last a bit longer.
They last a bit longer.
On packaging. We're a gifting product as well, but we're a traditional wholesaler. So normally our customers come into store and the experience is actually buying the leather product themselves and holding that product and taking it away. Soft stuff, like that. When we go online, what we did originally, if I'm being honest, we shove a leather wallet in a jiffy bag and it goes to the customer. Two questions. One, what importance do you put on packaging in terms of customer experience? And two, do you offer gifting packaging that's additional to your standard packaging? Do you charge for it? How do you deal with that as retail?
So I'll repeat for the stream. So what importance do you put on packaging, or like do your customers put on packaging? And then what do you offer in terms of gifting? Good summation?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so we do offer a gift box. We're changing it this year again, making it more sustainable, less ink. It's brown on the inside and printed yellow on the inside with vegetable inks. I personally think we'd rather in the future improve the transit box. So potentially that's more giftable and you don't need double boxes. And I think that's something we need to look at. But it was kind of too short term to solve that problem for Christmas this year.
The importance on packaging for us to date has primarily been on functionality because of it being like a temperature controlled product. And it really sucked because our boxes looked bad for a long time. But now the cardboard one is printed really nice. I think it looks very presentable, which is good. So we have that, but we don't offer a new gift box. And it may be just because we've gone through a big process of reinvesting in this new packaging, etc., and it may come on down the line, but it wouldn't be something that I could see us doing quickly, to be honest. But we do like people sending gifts.
Yeah. Well, I think that's we'll pack this up. See, I didn't make a single fish or cheese joke or pun. I think I honestly deserve a pat on the back. Anyone who knows me knows that's the case. I'd like to take a moment again to thank checkout.com, our host for facilitating all of this, GPMD, Shopware United especially, and of course to our two panelists, Jeremy and Jen. Thank you so much for making time, for having this discussion, and I'm really excited to see what all of this holds in store for us as we start to look towards that future where the future beyond masks, and hopefully a future where we have continued the depth of customer engagement that we've enjoyed for so many years. So please, everyone, hand for our lovely panelists.